What's going on, everybody? Stefano here, and welcome to Top of the Heap. These are my 5 most influential albums of all time. So to kick it off, we got the White Album by the Beatles. It's one of the first albums that I ever heard, and it really inspired me to pick up a guitar and start learning songs. Not to mention, Paul McCartney is one of my favorite bass players of all time, and his colorful bass lines and his smooth bass technique just really stand out on this album. And it's just a masterpiece. Every song is just beautiful. So, anyways, on to number 2. We got Hemispheres by Rush. Probably some of the greatest musicians who ever lived. Geddy Lee is one of my favorite bass players of all time, and Hemispheres is my favorite Rush album, so it's pretty much a no-brainer, no pun intended, to put this album on my most influential list. Also knowing what the band went through to record this album, the fact they wanted to do Villa Strangiato in one take, and they spent days getting no sleep and just going completely insane. Their insanity really shines on this album, and if you haven't heard it, please do. I also recommend watching the movie Rush Beyond the Lighted Stage, because if you don't appreciate this band, I guarantee you will after watching that movie. So, hugely inspirational. Really sad that Neil Peart passed away this year, but hey, that's what happens. Life goes on, right? Anyways, number 3, Nevermind by Nirvana. Every song on this album is really sweet. Lounge Act is one of my favorite bass lines ever. It's really tasty. Shout out to Chris Novoselic. Also, this album really inspired me to start playing in a garage band. And when I was in high school, when I was like 15 years old, like grade 10 or whatever, I formed a band with 2 buddies. Shouts out to Keegan and Justin. And we spent a lot of time in the garage, which is right below this room, learning and playing the same few songs from this album. And we played it over and over and over again and annoyed all the neighbors, but whatever, that's rock and roll. Gotta start somewhere, right? Sweet album. Number 4. Ride the Lightning by Metallica. This album unlocked the inner metalhead inside of me. It's one of the first metal albums I ever heard. Cliff Burton is one of my favorite bass players, and he had lightning quick speed, no pun intended, and he's a bass player whose technique I probably try to emulate more than any other bass player, just because I want to get my speed to the level he was at. So hugely inspirational. My first concert ever was Metallica with Lamb of God and Volbeat on the bill. I was 15 years old, and it was really sweet. So anyways, last but not least, Inner Visions by Stevie Wonder. So this is the first soul R&B album that I've ever owned, and it really got me interested in that genre, however you say it. Can't even speak English right now. It's like 2 a.m. right now. Pretty tired. But yeah, this album is where my bass journey began, because as soon as I got into soul and funk and R&B, I really started to clue into the bass lines on pretty much every other song, and it really sparked my desire to want to become a bass player. So my journey began here, slapping the bass. Anywho, that's the end of this list, and hope everybody's doing well. We're all gonna get through this, and as Stevie Wonder said, don't you worry about a thing. Peace. Good night.
Sunlust, top 5 most influential album, yeah.